You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
And here is part B of the Mammal Watching Gear podcast. So, John, you mentioned thermal images, thermal scopes, heat scopes, whatever you want to call them. And I think it's fair to say that these have revolutionized the way that mammal watchers do their business. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
I mean, let me start, and then others should definitely join in. I know Fiona has views, especially of the cheat scope, as she calls it. So yeah, they're absolutely revolutionary. For those who haven't used them, it's basically easier looking through a heat scope than looking with the naked eye, because not only can you see the animals with the right weather and climatic conditions are a little light bulb that just shine. So look, here I am. So they're extremely effective when it's the right temperature. They don't do well in extremes of temperature. They were sort of useless when I was up in the mountains of Chile, when it was very hot during the day and then plunged cold as soon as the sunset. They're really good after rain, I find, in the tropics, where things cool down, everything's sort of even. I think the wider field of view ones are better than the more powerful magnification. I never use the electronic zoom on mine. And I find that people who've got the wider, less powerful magnification ones probably do better because they can get closer to focus on things. I have a 50 power one, whatever that means. But what it means in practice is if I can see what looks like a mouse in a bush, I get to within 2 meters of that bush and then it just disappears because it won't focus any closer and I get nothing. So I can't actually zoom in on things, which is frustrating. I did get to play around with a bunch of new ones in Romania a few months ago, and they were a lot better. There's a whole new breed of these things now. In Europe, they seem more available than the US. I think Leica are making one. Many models, and the definition's great. I know Charles was just playing with them, so he can talk about his Estonia experience. But I think they're pretty much now, for those who can afford them at least, a standard piece of kit. They every mammal watcher seems to have one or be thinking of getting one or wanting one. They're really a game changer.
So I'll give 2 notes on this. I've just come back from the Baltics, and so we were looking for flying squirrels. We had a nest hole, very small, in the sort of a part of the tree that was obscured by another part of a tree, and it's getting dark, and it's 10:30, 11 at night. It's dark, and I knew where the hole was. I knew that a squirrel's going to come out. We're waiting for an hour. The mosquitoes are buzzing, and you're sitting in the swamp, and it's easy to be distracted. But because I had a heat scope, as soon as the flying squirrel stuck its tiny little flying squirrel head out of the hole, it lit up like a white hot flash, like a little light bulb or something. Then I knew to take my binoculars out and focus. And then the animal came out of the hole and perched on the side of the tree. And then it scampered up and we lost it. But then with the heat scope, I could pick it up in the top of the tree again and then watch it fly. So without the heat scope, I don't think I would have had the patience for 2 hours to wait until it poked its little head out. But then, yes, I was using a more advanced model on a lynx trip in Estonia just over the weekend. And holy smokes, are the new quality, the resolution. So, there's a nocturnal bird, a woodcock, and from a moving car, the guide saw a woodcock with chicks on the forest floor while we're driving on a dirt road, because the resolution was just so absolutely good. You could make out the structure of the forest. We were picking out chaffinches, in flight, as opposed to the model that I have, which is sort of things are white blobs. There's either a blob or no blob. Those are sort of the kind of idea there. But I spent the morning, so I was convinced I want one of these new ones. How I'll pay for it, I have to get a third job and a second wife. They'll be a little bit tricky to do the finances on these, because it was 3,500 euros for this top end model. Which is, obviously a lot of money for anybody. But there are none in the US. I can just tell you, I've been shopping all morning and pretty much this supply chain issue. So if you know anyone in Latvia or Lithuania where they seem to be assembled, Estonia, they can get delivered. But here in the US, I can't find one.
Fiona, do you use one? A cheat scope?
Well, I've tried. I ended up buying cheaper model, and you get what you pay for. It's actually really useless if you shine it up in leaves and stuff, because the animal's the same heat as the leaves, at least in the tropics. So it only works if you use it at ground level. People use them for counting bats exiting the roost. Let me see, it's amongst my pile of rubble that I don't really use. It's a FLIR, FLIR. And it was a lot cheaper than the model that John was trying to sell me on, which I couldn't afford. So I don't really find it that useful. I don't really take it because, like I say, it's a bit frustrating because you can't see stuff in the trees, only on the ground.
But Fiona, that's a temperature thing. So a termite mound will glow white hot and a sloth will grow white hot. It just has to do with how the leaves have cooled off, whether there's a breeze cooling the wind, or whether it's been raining.
I think with this one though, it's just that it makes the leaves versus the sky. The leaves are like white and the sky is black. So if there's an animal, it looks like the leaves. I think it's honestly, I've tried it many times and it just doesn't seem to bring out the animal unless it's like on the ground and there's no sky background, because it's kind of the cold sky versus the leaves and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah,
I'm inspired. I'm going to try again. After you're talking about seeing those things, I would like to see a woodcock with chicks, and they're on the ground, so I think I might give it a try.
Well, in Gabon, we all had heat. Well, I don't think I had one yet then, but everybody had one. Like, we were seeing dikers through the vegetation. We saw a feeding fruit bat through vegetation that was just hanging there eating right. We saw a mouse from a moving vehicle that was in a thorn bush. So they really do up your mammal list if that's your goal. Someone mentioned to me they weren't going to buy one because what if I only use it once? And to my mind, well, how much did you only use airfare once? You spent 2,000 quid to fly to Kenya, and you only did that once. So if it gets you the animal, then if it ggets you the pangolin, then it was worth it to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did use one in Gabon, not the cheapo model. I have a decent one. So yes, it was helpful. We definitely saw some stuff we wouldn't have seen otherwise. No, I like them. I just don't have the money. But
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of dollar per new species, it's gotten me. It's like one of the most efficient investments I've ever made. Just about leaves and things. Well, I was surprised a couple of weeks ago when I was in Panama. I think I was telling you, Fiona, I was wandering through the rainforest there, and I saw heat coming out of some rolled up heliconia leaves, and I thought, well, that must be sucker-footed bats. Or disc-winged bats. And I went over, and sure enough, there was some disc-winged bats inside the leaves, and I got the heat coming through those leaves, and that was surprising. But it had rained at dusk, so the leaves had cooled down, so there was a temperature differential there. But it's an effective way even to find things like that, sort of hiding completely concealed.
Yeah. What I found with the thermal scopes is that there's definitely a learning curve on how to use them effectively. And when I first bought mine, I really was underutilizing it. And the key, what I find eventually it's to keep it on the lowest level of brightness, because otherwise it just blows out the vision in that eye. And now that I've figured that out, I use it quite a lot instead of a torch to scan for animals from vehicles. So let's say if you're standing through the moonroof of a car, you can use it to scan from side to side if someone else is driving. And I find it more effective than torchlight, because you tend to pick up the very small things as well as the very large things. And it has the advantage that it draws much less attention, and you can use it in places like a national park where otherwise you're forbidden to actually use torchlight. So from that perspective, it's great. And as Charles, as you were saying, they're really hard to get hold of at the moment, whether it's either the chip shortage or they've all gone to Ukraine, that I don't know. But I was just actually in communication with Todd Pusser, who we went to North Carolina with, and I was talking to him this morning, and he says he has just bought a model called the Taipan TM10, and he's used it quite a bit now, and he says it works very well up to about 200 yards, and that's a much cheaper model. It's about $500 in the US compared to about 2,000, which is what the pulsars seem to be going for these days, if you can actually get your hands on them. So that may be a good option for people who want to see if it's something that's worth investing bigger money in, and to see whether it's something that you like it or not, because some people don't like using them. Fiona, what other equipment do you take out with you when you're going out into the field, electronic equipment and such?
Well, I do have those bat detectors that go on your phone, the Echometer Touch, and those are fun to have and to be able to listen to bats. You can't really count on the IDs being right, but they're nice to have along, and they can give you an idea where a good spot is if there's lots of activity or something like that, which you might not be able to tell otherwise. So I have those. I often take a little handheld speaker because you can record, the call of a monkey or something and play it back to it. And I think that's something that maybe mammal watchers don't do that much, which might be kind of fun to try more of, to see what mammals will respond. Primates obviously do, but it'd be fun to try more with other species and see how much they respond to their own call. Like, you often get animals being very annoyed when they get their song played back to them, and that way you can get better looks at them, which is great. But
yeah,
I haven't tried it with lots of big game or anything, but it might be fun to see what happens if you did.
Yes, well, trust me, it's very fun to see the reaction of a lion when you play a squealing pig sound to it at night. So become very curious indeed.
Yes, even if you imitate, Uditha Hettig has a very good way of calling things in, and I tried that in Africa, and I had a leopard jump up and a genet come to the road, and all kinds of stuff respond. So yes, speaking and stuff is definitely useful. And bats, you can sometimes catch really cool bats if you're mean enough to just hold a squeaky bat and kind of keep it squeaking for a while, then you can get some more omnivorous bats coming to investigate that bat. And I had an ocelot come that way too, which was very nice. A couple of times I've had good views of ocelots when they hear squeaking of a bat or another animal. So that can be fun. But having a speaker, you can record something on your phone and play it back nice and loud and see what happens. Yeah. So.
What about you, Charles?
Yeah, I have an Echometer Touch that goes on my phone, and I was just using it in the Baltics just over the weekend, and I recorded a bunch of stuff. The ID may be wrong, the automatic ID may be wrong. I said northern bat and pond bat and some of the myotas, but I've got recordings, and so for Europe, there are very good field guides. So I just got back last night, so I haven't checked yet, but I'm presuming I'm going to get some life bats out of that experience, and it's fun just to know they're around. This is one of these party tricks where you want to get people interested in nature. Just go to the city park and let people, hear the bats that are flying over their heads. It's always, to my mind, always been popular with the quote unquote civilians. My wife loves to do it when we're on holiday in the summer. Swiss Army knife or Leatherman. Everyone should have one in your bag. You'll need to stab something, cut something, mend something sooner or later. And then I'm old school. I think you should have a hard copy field note journal with you all the time. Airport, in the loo, in queue, just always. And even if you only wrote 10 things down over the course of a journey, that's stuff that you would not normally photograph or you wouldn't normally remember. Fiona, what do you think about keeping field notes, journals, sketching?
I think it's a great idea. I'm a bit lax about it these days, but yes, it's wonderful. And it's fun to look back and you go, oh yeah, that happened. Oh my God. Yeah, that was a bad situation, whatever. But yeah. And sometimes you get some notes on an animal that, quite interesting. Yeah.
What do you take, John?
Electronically, I think Fiona, what she was saying, I agree very much. I have a little Bluetooth speaker I take with me sometimes. Many have been sort of used that for monkeys. There are various cool libraries around you can find. I've got a very few of them on mammalwatching.com sort of linked, but Louise Emmons has a 2 CD set of sounds from the Neotropics, and I have that on my phone. So, you can find different primates and other things on that. But I think this is an untapped seam of mammal finding that I haven't gotten into, not many people have. Squeaking for sure does work for some animals, but I think there's a lot to learn here. And I know that someone wrote to us recently, Charles, suggesting a podcast on this very topic, saying he thinks that then there's lots we could be doing on this. When I was in Romania, we were sort of playing a little bit for lynxes because they're very vocal in the mating season, but I know in Estonia they find them sometimes by playing the call. And in Sweden, that I was chatting with a guy who said the local hunters were saying scent and a mixture of the call can be really effective. So it's a question of sort of doing this in a way that's not going to, ethically, it's not going to distract the animal from the urgent business at hand of mating, but as a way to sort of, promote ecotourism. It can be done responsibly, I'm sure, but that we have a lot to learn. So that would be one thing I think that I include, both the calls and the speaker.
Yeah.
If we could look ahead, I have a prediction. We need acoustical devices under the water, hydrophones, the way we have pulsar heat scopes now, where are so we can get all the beaked whales, right? If it cost me $1,000 for a hydrophone, how much am I spending to go to the Western Pacific? I'm only going to go once in my life. Because I listened to your beaked whale podcast, John, and like, oh my gosh, they're IDing them by call. Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't you? So I need somehow to even off of Monterey, right? We need to record what's going on under the surface of the ocean. So people listening out there, we have an untapped market. We need hydrophones, portable one-person hydrophones that goes on my iPhone.
Yeah, and then plays back as
meters
well.
Of line.
So you can call the beaked whales in.
No, just so you can record what was there, documented that they were around.
Yeah, well, in the hunting industry, from what I've seen online, they do use a lot of audio lures to bring animals in, and they've got them for all sorts of different species. But I know very little about it, and I've never actually gone out and tried one. But I agree. I think that there's a whole untapped market for mammal watching out there.
Charles, was it you telling me about the way they call in dikers?
Yes.
Super
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they blow either on a piece of grass or they use a sort of goat's horn or something like that, and there's a blow through that, and the batwa can call dikers, and apparently people say that it's astonishing. The dikers will come right up to you looking for where this call came from. But I've been trying to find a device that might make a similar noise, but I have yet to find it. So if anyone out there knows how to make a diker call, get in touch.
Yeah.
So what about some of the other tips, other things that just generally make your life easier when you travel? Because, as I always like to say, any idiot can be uncomfortable in the bush. So what do you take which you've found to be either really useful or any slight travel tips that we can share with the audience?
No Velcro. If you're buying a new coat, make sure there's no Velcro on it. I was in a hide looking for wolverines a week ago, and someone had a Velcro pocket, and it just sounds like firecrackers going off in the silence of the night. And I used to work at a backpacking store, and so I can honestly say that all this high-end gear, North Face, Patagonia, and so on, with lifetime guarantees that they take to Mount Everest, if you spend a lot of money up front, but over your lifetime, it'll just last and last, and it can be mended and then still last and last. So, I've got Patagonia coats that went with me to the South Pole that are still perfectly fine, and mountaineering packs. So really look for the high-end, robust. It is used to kayak the Amazon, and don't worry about the price. It'll work itself out later on. Get that third job.
Fiona?
I'm addicted to hammocks, so I think those really tiny portable hammocks are super convenient. And if you happen to be going out looking for something and you're going to stay all night, it's really nice to have a hammock with you. And now they're really, you can get really compact ones, so that's always nice. Clothing wise, I hate all the poly this and poly that. I like cotton. It's so much cooler and so much more comfortable. I've been trying to find some more cotton clothing and failing because everything is synthetic these days, and to me they're just hot and sweaty and horrible, so I don't like those kinds of things. And if you're working with bats, no buttons, because mist nets and buttons have this affinity for each other, and they will not let go of one another once they meet each other on a windy day, and it's really disastrous for so buttons and zippers and all that stuff. You just need a nice long sleeve t-shirt that's 100% cotton, and that's it.
So a couple of things. One thing that has really revolutionized the way that I pack is using simple packing cubes. And you sort of buy these cubes, and they're really cheap. It's like 20 or 30 bucks online, the slightly different sizes. And they're great because you can just put all your various layers of clothes or equipment in these packing cubes. And then when you come to take it out, it's all easily available, because otherwise you're bound to just like, get something lost in the bottom of your pack and you can't find it when you need to, etc. So packing cubes are great. And I should say that I am a member of the scrawny buttock brigade, and I have a bad back. And so I always travel with an inflatable seat cushion. And there's one, Thermarest, for instance, makes a really good one. And let me tell you, anyone who has sat on a KLM seat, right, for more than 5 hours will thank me for giving you advice on taking one of these things. And even, you're going out, you're sitting on a canoe or any seat that's really hard, these are just great. And the trick, of course, is not to inflate them too much, otherwise they become just as hard as the seat itself. So that I would highly recommend. Mosquito net. Whenever I'm traveling in Tanzania, I always travel with a mosquito net. They are very light, fold up, really small, and take a mosquito net and string, because there is nothing worse than being in a hotel room, and sometimes in some very expensive hotel rooms, and that noise all night. That is the worst. So I bring those along. And finally, if I'm traveling to tropical rainforests, I quite often travel with welly boots, gum boots. And these, of course, are useful if it's muddy in the rain season, or you're having to walk through rivers. But what I found, certainly in Africa, is the big selling point is that army ants can't climb up rubber boots, right? So if you happen to walk through a column or a nest of ants, you're not going to get savaged by them. Whereas if you're wearing regular shoes, you will be running for your life. So that's another tip I have.
And they help with protect you somewhat against snake bites too.
Right.
Yeah. And I would agree with all of that. Add to it, a power bar is super useful, to plug things in. I lost track of the number of times we've been waiting for a couple of hours at a lodge after we've checked out, and there's one power point and everyone wants to charge their stuff. So the person with the power bar becomes very popular. I have like a little kind of ground sheet I keep in my camera bag, just because I spend so much time sitting down by bat nets in the dark in the forest, and it's just sometimes nice to sit on something that's not an ant-infested floor, even if it doesn't really do much good. And luggage, like Charles was saying, a lot of like high-end luggage, or high-end but decent quality luggage, has a lifetime guarantee. And I would go through bags so often that it would be like every 6 months I'd have to buy a new case, because they get knackered so quickly. So get something decent with a guarantee, and then remember you have the guarantee and keep a note of it so you can actually claim on it. That's the other trick. I've got these things, I can't find the receipt, but that's a different story.
Okay, so any final tips or words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
The advice I never have time to take myself is to like pack the day before, so you can realize, oh, I need X and there's time to get X. My life is such that I'm always, what can I say? I'm packing in a rush, and then inevitably arriving like, oh, I wish I had done this. Pack the day before completely and utterly, be ready to go. John Hall's laughing. You can't do that either, I bet, in your line of work. You're traveling so much. Just leave your bag always packed, John.
I used to. I don't travel as much anymore. I mean, to get around that, I'm always forgetting things, and I always arrive, and I've always forgotten something. I use my drafts folder in my Gmail to have various lists of things. I keep lists, it's a surprise, but I have a packing list, and I just leave it in my Gmail drafts. So every time I go on a trip, I just skim through and make sure I've remembered everything. And I can add to that. You don't have to keep sending yourself a new list and saving it. You just add things or take them off as you change your mind. But I find that an efficient way to kind of make sure I've got the basics, even if I do nearly always forget something.
I'm terribly forgetful, so I forget all kinds of things, and I forget to make a list, or I forget where my list is. So yes, that's a very handy idea. I think it's also good to realize that, back in the old days, people did a lot with just a pair of binoculars, if that, and a simple light. So there are your basics. You can still get to see a lot of good stuff. That's how I started, and it's nice to have all this other fancy stuff, but you can still have a good time even if you do forget most of your stuff. And of course, you have to pack field guides. Those of us who write field guides, we haven't even mentioned field guides. Oh my God, I'm surrounded by a room full of field guides. And now everything has gone so electronic that people like me are getting completely out of business and not making any money. So don't forget to buy a field guide and pack it.
Right. Yes. And electronic field guides just don't work for me. I understand why people take them because of the weight, but no. It has to be something that you can physically pick up and touch and smell, etc.
Yeah.
And it's something you can leave behind along with the spare pair of binoculars for the guide or the lodge that was trying to do the right thing, and they just don't have access to that kind of information.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I've been buying duplicates. Literally, I'll bring extra field guides intentionally to a country in order, knowing I'll leave some behind with one of the guides.
One thing that I typically tend to do is whenever I travel anywhere, and even if it's to a tropical country, I will always take a light puff jacket with me, it's sort of Patagonia or something like that, because you are bound to find yourself in a situation where you're sitting either in a plane or a taxi or a hotel room with really strong air conditioning, and you end up sort of freezing. And these jackets will roll up really tightly, and if you don't need to use it for warmth, then you can always use it as a pillow. And the other thing I do is I have had so many bags gone missing on flights that now I always take a couple of sets of spare clothes with me on my carry-on luggage. So that way, if you do lose your main luggage, then at least you've got something to tide you over.
People have recommended these tracking devices. I haven't tried them yet, where you put something inside your bag and there's a locator service that'll find out where the bag is and fetch it. Yes,
I have tried that. We did it on the last trip to Ecuador, but bottom line is that if all it does is it tells you that your bag is still in Atlanta.
I know you've got no chance of clean underwear, not just a hope.
That's right. Great. Are there any other pearls of wisdom anyone wants to share?
Just go.
Just go.
Always just go. Get the cheapest airfare and just go. You can sort the kid out later.
Right. Great. Well, everyone, thank you so much for all your input and your insights. What I think we will do is make a note of the different ideas that we've had and put that down somewhere on John's website so that other people can look at that and look at some of the different models and things that we use. So in case you missed it when we were talking about it. But yeah, I think this has been extremely useful.
And
Good.
I'm going to talk to Charles Foley before I travel, because he's really got comfort down, and I like that.
I love this that Charles said, is that he told me this when we did our snow leopard trip. He said any fool can be uncomfortable in the bush, because I looked kind of askance at his collapsible seat he brought with him, and then I was immediately extremely envious for the rest of the trip that he was sitting so comfortably. So
I had a little folding stool, backpacking folding stool in Mongolia, and everybody wanted to use it. It weighed maybe half a kilo, and it's from a backpacking store, but it's just, what can you say? It makes looking through a scope easier, everything.
That's right. And if you've got all the comfortable kit, you can then swap it out for a beer that night or something. So yeah.
I'm traveling with you, Charles. Yeah.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.